Welcome, everyone. My name is Danny Ross, and I'm going to be one of your co-hosts today. We are in week 5, if you can believe it, of our Genesis cohort. If you have missed any of the previous weeks, I'm going to share the workbook with you in just a moment. And if you go down to the bottom of the workbook, you will see the links for the replays of the previous week. Don't worry, you can easily catch up. And in the workbook, you'll also find all of the prompts and just history of what we've done over the last few weeks. And this week is going to be really, really interesting. As you know, my co-host Joel Hill has written a book called Eternal Seekers. And what's interesting about what we're going to do today is we're going to show you how you take a theme as broad as that and then turn it into something that's relevant to today's latest technology. That's a lot of fun. So we'll walk through that and just to show you the power of the concepts. This week, you're going to get a lot of interesting things. Without further ado, let me introduce my co-host, Joel Hill. Take it away, Joel.
Hey, thank you, Danny. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the motivating music, because I second that emotion myself. Being excited about data and data ownership and what we're doing here. Not only are we showing you how to have, be, or do what you want, but we're also showing you how to create systems that are governed based on frameworks and models. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why I built this whole course around this process, because we understand that there's a lot of AI hype out there. There's AI training over here you see on Facebook, AI training you see on LinkedIn. Everybody's an expert now in artificial intelligence and agents, bots, and things like the avatars, you name it all. We don't focus on tools. We help you govern your AI architecture, but first we help you understand how to integrate AI. And so we do AI audits. And the reason we do that, essentially, well, my background as a military intelligence, United States Air Force intelligence officer, as well as a federal investigator, I spent much of my career as an intelligence analyst, where the job was simple in principle, but difficult in practice. And so you have to follow the evidence and update your judgment when new facts appears in intelligence and in investigations. That experience and that molding shaped me in terms of how I think about artificial intelligence today, because AI is a very powerful tool. And I say tool, but we take that tool and turn it into systems if you know how to govern it properly. And hopefully by the end of this, 6 weeks, we're going to show you how to do that. One of the things we always talk about is humanizing artificial intelligence. And so I have another enterprise called AI for Humanity Solutions.com, AI for Humanity Solutions.com. And that's where we try to humanize AI. We want to make sure that, AI, just like any other technology, can be used for good or evil. I mean, fire is a technology. Yeah, it can warm your house, warm your water, warm your food, but it all could burn you. You got other technologies out there like nuclear weapons and nuclear power. I mean, you get the drift where I'm coming from. Any tool can be used for good or evil. And so we are training people to use it for humanity. The first is like, we have a creed, do no harm. And so we don't focus on the hype. We don't focus on creating cute cat memes. And so what I like to talk about today is that artificial intelligence should never replace human judgment. Over the 40 years of my career working with intelligence systems and information operations, I learned that most dangerous systems are the ones that act without governance. And so good intelligence requires evidence, probability, and disciplined thinking. And so I later carried those lessons of the teaching as an information operations professor at the Joint Military Intelligence College. As a researcher, I set up the first IO training at the Joint Military Intelligence College, published documents on transforming defense intelligence to support information operations, and helping organizations in the United States Air Force how technology should shape human decision making. Because again, I've been retired a long time now, probably over 20 years, but the military has always been 20 years ahead of its time. And we certainly were, because we were doing the things now, setting up the infrastructure to support digital environments. And that was kind of at the turn of my career in terms of understanding information operations and the impact on digital production. But because of my work in the military, I was honored to receive the National Intelligence Medal of Achievement from the Director of National Intelligence. And the lesson in that was simple. Evidence should change our beliefs and not the other way around. That is the principle why I built the Artificial Intelligence Governed Workstation and framework. We also have we're working in developing a standalone system. What do I mean by that? The AIW is not only in the cloud, but is also a physical hardware piece of technology that can be used standalone because we have embedded the large language models, our critical thinking tools, the secret framework within that system. And so it can be customized to the different personas that we're going to be talking about. And so that means what? Well, it means that you no longer need the internet because the AI is contained within that. You can work offline. If you need to transmit, well, guess what? We have a satellite link that can be hooked up to it and you can transmit. Having said all that, I wanted to say that not to impress you, but to impress upon you that we are actually building the model. We're giving you the recipe to basically create your own factory to produce ethical digital products, to govern your intelligence, to market, to have, be, or do what you want, and to remain safe in the information environment. I'm going to move on. We have a lot of information to get through, but I want to make sure that you understand the secret framework because this is foundational. And so we're going to spend a lot of time on theory. Don't worry about writing this down. Some of the prompts will be in the workbook. And so if you have a question, just put it in the chat and we'll try to get it answered. Next slide, Danny. I want to talk a little about where we've been so far, just give you a recap. In week one, we established the foundational principle that artificial intelligence is a tool, not a decision maker. Humans stay accountable. In week two, we talked a little bit about moving into building custom products. And so this is the point where we're starting to teach the system and train the system how to think. And again, it kind of goes to, we use biblical principles. Obviously, eternal seekers was based on the Bereans. You could find in Acts 17:11, who were studied Jews who didn't just accept what Apostle Paul had said was so, they searched the scriptures daily. And so that's all Berean methods are, looking at the evidence. In week three, we recapped that. Then we start adding guardrails. What do you mean by guardrails? It's governance. How, when, what, and how the system should behave. And so those are the guardrails once we built the system. And so week four, we kind of shifted a little bit. We crossed over into a threshold. We're moving from AI that advises to AI that acts. And then that brings in the agentic aspect where you start creating bots to answer questions, but then agents who act on your behalf. And so we taught you how to build those. The key message out of all this, everything that has been covered tonight, though, changes the equation. And this is where we move into term sequence. Next slide, Danny. One piece of evidence changed everything. So let me start with a short story. Years ago, when I was working on the Joint Staff targeted J2T at the Pentagon, I was there during one of the plannings for the Iraqi war. And one of the questions driving everything was simple, but incredibly consequential. And the big question was, and we all saw it, it's history, did Iraq possess weapons of mass destruction? And so I don't know what your opinion is. We all saw, General Colin Powell at the United Nations providing evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Now, let's just trace that back. And where did that information come from? And so this is what we're talking about, being able to trace back the evidentiary trail so that you're certain, well, this is what the secret loop does. And so in our ecosystem, once you understand this, evidence can be traced back and assigned to the human, whoever made the decision to accept the information from a source that said that Iraq had yellow cake, which was a precursor to, creating a nuclear weapon. And so if we could have traced that back, so yeah, we traced it back. Okay, the person was there, but then you have to look at the source. And so that's what AIW was. It provides weighted values to the type of source of information in terms of how it impacts on the outcome. And so one of the big lessons out of all this that I took out of one piece of information could have changed everything. If that source had been validated, well, maybe it could have prevented war. I don't know for certain, but applying this use case and this model to what had already occurred, I could see where it would have been very useful. And so that moment taught me everything, and something I've never forgotten, that good intelligence doesn't defend beliefs, good intelligence updates them. And so, next slide, David. And so this is why we introduced you to what we call the Bayesian mindset thinking. The Bayesian, it's a theorem, well known, created by Reverend Thomas Bayes, I believe. That's therefore the name Bayesian. And so this model, though, and this is what we do in the military, you always got to have a model. There's a model for everything. There's a model for every domain. And if you're in logistics, they have models of best practices. Well, in intelligence, we have models in terms of how we marshal and evaluate, collect data. And there are models. One of the things you're going to learn about how to use large language models is don't try to figure it out yourself. Find a model that you like and ask the AI to help you replicate that based on what you're trying to do. And that's one of our use cases. Investigators and the intel analysts, we essentially do use the same model. We try to find out what happened. And so it's not magic. It's not lucky. It's a way of thinking that investigators and analysts responsible for the decision makers have used for decades. And so in intelligence work, we try not to lock ourselves into coming to conclusions without sufficient evidence. Our understanding, we try to update that information as we go along. Again, it's a loop. Bayesian thinking is, in one word, don't let it intimidate you. You start with what you think is likely. Then when the new evidence shows up, and instead of defending your original belief, you update your probability. That's exactly what happened in the story I just shared. That is the point. So don't worry about the math. In Bayesian, you can take the same tool, AI, the large language models, ChatGPT, all understand Bayes' theorem. And so if you have some evidence or a hypothesis, if you believe something based on this, okay, say based on this, do I believe that we're going to attack country XYZ? Well, what's your evidence? And so it will go out and tell it. And that's the tool that we use, especially when you are looking at things, we'll make decisions that have impacts on life and trust. You don't want to jump straight to conclusions because sometimes evidence, what your eyes are seeing, what your ears are seeing, may not be the only evidence out there. There could be other evidentiary facts, mitigating circumstances to support or defend or deny your claims. And you have to find those out instead of basing it from an emotional standpoint. This makes it very non-emotional way of looking at things, but it also gives you the facts. Now, one thing that I do know about why we want to keep these humans, because humans will always or should decide whether or not they accept the evidence or not. You still have to make a decision whether or not this is going to be good for humanity in spite of what your beliefs. And that's the core foundation. And so what most people believe, let's make this simple. Most people think AI is a super fast answer machine. You ask a question, it gives an answer right away. But here's the problem. Sometimes the answer sounds right, even when it's actually wrong. As Daniel says, AI, ChatGPT wants to please you. Based on what I know now, working with AI, these systems learning about 4 or 5 years, I have found that you can actually go down an AI rabbit hole if you allow AI to prompt you to not stop when you have the answers that you think, because then it starts creating stuff. But we're going to talk about that a little later too, in terms of how we stop it from mitigating, because it's all or drifting, as we say, because it's all built into the secret loop. You got to stop and ask, do I have enough information? Where did this information come from? Has anyone checked this? Again, go back to weapons of mass destruction. If we had the secret loop, we could have determined that. And so the ungoverned AI is fast, but it doesn't always mean it's correct. And that's the point. When you go to ChatGPT and you type in something that you want to know in the chat box, it's going to give you an answer. It's going to give you an answer, and it wants to please you. But that is the key. You can't stop there. Now, that's why we have moved to the seeker loop framework, the AIW Workstation, because it's a governed artificial intelligence system. It's a governed intelligence enterprise. It's a governed platform. And so it's not going to allow you to take the first answer that comes up because it's going to question you. It even will interview. And so it's going to try to help you get the right solution because why? Number one, we showed you in previous weeks how to train your chatbots, how to train your models. It's all there for you to go back to review the workbooks. And Danny has done demos where we've shown you the training materials, the chatbots, and that's how we keep your AI from or your ChatGPT from mitigating, hallucinating, and things of that nature. The system we use is called Seeker. And so we're going to go through that in some detail. I want to make sure that you understand this framework. You don't have to worry about writing it down. The prompts are going to be in the workbook, and you can go from there. But if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. The Seeker it stands for something. S stands for situation, understanding the problem clearly. E stands for evidence, gather the facts. There's another E for evidence sources. Check the sources. And then where did this information come from? The K stands for knowledge. Knowledge is important. You got data, just random numbers, facts, just unscattered stuff. You got information about something that happened in one particular aspect. And then you have knowledge. Knowledge is in the hierarchy of learning, is the highest level that you get because that knowledge is saying that I have studied this info. I have looked at the domain requirements. I know all there is to know about this information in order to make informed decision whether or not to launch or not launch. And so the E stands for expert review. Before anything goes out, human must act. And then the R is response. Okay, next slide, Dave. And so the framework, this is the secret sauce revealed. The previous slide, then the secret framework. I'm going to talk about this is the secret sauce. It's a simple way of teaching AI think before it acts. The system should follow this process. Again, this is built into the AIW secret source. To lack of a better word, we've created our own internal chip, just like NVIDIA chip. And just like they program their chips, essentially we have hardwired the model into the framework, but it has to follow the rules because we have governed it. And that is the beauty about the secret framework because we have basically created the algorithm for each of these areas. The system knows how to respond, and Danny's going to show you that a little later on. And so before anything happens in the system, it's going to do those things automatically. Okay, next slide, Danny. And so this is the operational framework, the backbone of the AIW workflow. As I said, it's built inside. But why does this exist? Well, other than one of the things that Danny alluded to earlier, that, in the real world, client problems rarely arrive clean and organized. And so that's why I wrote the book almost 2 years ago. I'm not sure what it's doing right now, but that started it all. And that's almost 2 years ago. And so from that product, we developed the system. And so now from that book becomes the foundation of what we're trying to teach because the framework is already outlined. We put it into a system, and now we're training our models to work basically on what we stated, how a system should work in eternal sequence. We are setting a new path in the ground. As far as I know, there aren't any companies out there that are doing this exactly the way we're doing it because we're focusing on human aspect and govern as well as data ownership. And this leads to data ownership when you know where the data came from, when you can track it, when you control it into your knowledge basis, well, you own that data. And if you create anything new from GPT, then we're going to talk about this later, the last hour, intellectual property. The secret loop exists, and we're going to take you through the exercise of real world examples. One of the beauties about our training each week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you guys are welcome to join us. Tuesdays at, I'm not sure what time, I think noon, but we're on Thursdays at noon for the AI Workstation. And we teach and we show you, we have actual clients. They come in with projects. And so one of the projects we're going to demonstrate today is one of the clients who basically came in with a box of hard copy materials. He was a pastor, of sermons he had, plays that he wanted to get published, writings, the different texts that he used. And so essentially we had to organize that data, scan it, put it in PDFs, and then we dropped it into a knowledge base. Just think of it, you guys are familiar with SharePoint. Well, we have SharePoint within our tech stack. We have a SharePoint system where we drop all that knowledge into that data set in order for later on for the large language models to data mine and extract based on whatever hypothesis or product we want to create or whatever we want to have being do. What does that do? Well, number one, it creates, you have trained the GPT to respond only to that data set that you're giving it. The thinking, the algorithms come in when you want to transform that. And that's what GPT stands for. Now I want you to transform my book into a system. That is a prompt I just gave you. If you had a book, just take it. I want to transform my book into a system in order to market, give it away, or sell. And so what I'm teaching you is what we've done. And so it's the model and it works. As I said, all this information arrived messy, and he wanted to use AI, but he really didn't know how to spell AI, but that's okay. We weren't sure if they wanted automation, they want analytics, they want to create new sermons, all that, which were questions he had to compete. In the end, we're going to show you the actual product that we came up with for this pastor, where we took all this information, created his chatbot, created his avatar, and everything that he wanted is right there. We just didn't simply, say, hey, here's some AI. No. We gave him his own system now. And so now he can take that, and that is his digital pastoral legacy. And so he knows where it came from. He knows how it was made. And so we just didn't transform unstructured information. We transformed it into a governed knowledge-based repository of information that he can always revert back to and things of that nature. We want to ensure one critical rule about the secret loop. Well, each phase of the secret loop has a specific job. Again, so this is all automated. One stage gathers the context. What do you want to do with this information once it's loaded? Another evaluates the evidence. Okay, do I have enough information to make this statement or claim about this individual? And then another assess the risk. Is this harmful? But each stage builds on the other. And so one stage always ensures human authority remains in control. Now, none of these phases can be skipped. That is the key. You can't move forward. It's going to lock you in. Whereas with just a regular GPT, it's going to send you down a rabbit hole. It's going to always ask you, would you like me to add? How about this? One more thing. There was one night I was writing something and wanted to make it human, and the AI actually told me, man to man, I think this is great. And I'm like, man to man, I wrote back, you are a tool, you are not human. And so you use AI as a servant. It's not your master. So you make it work for you, but you got to train it and you got to govern it. And then you have to follow the yellow brick road. You got to follow the process. And so if you follow the process, any organization, any individual, any enterprise, this framework would work if you follow the process. So next slide, then. Let's talk about the secret loop behind governed AI. Remember, I told you about the loop. The secret loop, it's like, let me explain it. Sometimes I do figure eights. I walk in a loop. And when I'm thinking, I'm crossing over. And so if you look at that, the loop, if you turn it vertically, it would be a figure eight. Number 8, from a spiritual perspective, is a sign of transformation. The secret loop behind governed AI. Think about riding a bicycle in a circle track. You cross over. You just don't ride once and stop. If you're learning how to ride a bike, right? Remember that? You go around the track, but each time you go around the track, you see more, you learn more, and you get better at riding. That's what governed AI, that's the secret loop. It goes around these steps. And again, this is embedded in our AI workstation. But before we embedded it in a workstation, we had to have a plan. We are giving you the plan. You can do this yourself. You don't need us. We do have do-it-yourself services. We do have do-it-with-you services. We do have do-it-for-you services between Danny and I in terms of, how all this works. But we're giving you the blueprint right now. And so in order to train your bots, and that's what we taught weeks 1 through 5, and then finishing out 6, we've given you this whole process in a manual. The AI growth, so if you did this, what will happen is it will follow, we teach you to follow the loop behind the embedded chip. And this is what our workstation does, and Danny is going to demo that. It goes through that loop. It looks at the situation. What is the hypothesis? What's happening? Weapons of mass destruction. Says who? Sources. The situation is weapons of mass destruction. That's a situation. What are probably trying to solve? Well, probably trying to solve is not allowing a hostile nation, to use it and develop weapons. Okay, what facts do we have? Some guy told us that he saw a guy with some yellow cake. What other evidence? That's about it. Where do those facts come from? Some source that I met. Oh, so you can, if you put that into our system, it will reject that. It's going to put the facts together. It's going to show you, no, you need to go back and come back. And it's not going to give you, yeah, sure, if you put this in ChatGPT, it'll start making stuff up. You're probably right. I don't know where it will go. But we have tried governed and ungoverned prompts in our last class just to show you the responses to what you're going to get. The ones that didn't have the secret loop behind them and the ones that did. And so that's the beauty of the 6 weeks, is that you get a little bit more to help you build your foundation. And so after you look at that aspect, still at every loop, when it does do its final assessment, a human should always check it. Humans decide. And we're going to talk a little bit about structured and unstructured prompts when you're asking the GP something, and then when you're ready to make a decision to respond. And that's the agent response. Think of the agentic as a human agent. If you want an agent to respond on your behalf, you still have to review it, the human, because you are still behind pulling that trigger. The response aspect is very important. The AI is going to tell you, yeah, I think this is the situation. Would you like to launch the missile? A human makes the decision. Now, after the answer is given, the system just doesn't stop. The answer goes back to the beginning of the loop. It asks again. Now that we know this, what is the situation now? To come back, if you had learned a little bit more, you would have found out that the source that we got this information from was unreliable, and they were a double agent. They were feeding us bad information, but we wanted our beliefs to be true. This is how smart professionals work in real life. Intelligence analysts study new clues again and again. Doctors look at new test results and update their thinking. Investigators keep checking evidence as they learn more. And they don't just guess once and stop. They keep learning in a loop. That's why the arrow and the diagram goes back to the beginning. It shows that governed AI is not just answering questions, it's learning and improving every time. And so I'm going to step through this real quickly, because I think that we want to get on to the demos, and I'm going to take about 3 or 4 minutes. But just to show you, we always try to make this applicable to what we call our personas. We have about 9 personas that we work with currently now that we have our system set up. And of course, we work with veterans, we work with ministries, we work with nonprofits, we work with some real estate people, we work with some manufacturing, and also ministries. In this particular case, we're looking at a veteran, and we actually have a young lady who's wanting to help veterans who came with us with an idea for an app. And we're going to show you that today. It's called VSO Buddy. And so she'll be working, and then I guess, to give a shout out to her, Shanika, thank you. She's looking for clients, and anybody want to try our system, which, oh, by the way, is built on the secret system. Let's just take a Marine Veteran Reserve, real case here. This is an actual case, who is experiencing service-connected anxiety, but does not have a DD-214, and doesn't know how to begin a VA disability claim. This came out of a training we did for the VFW post in Fort Washington, Maryland, about a couple of months ago. The question was a hard question. We ran it through the system, and it did a very good job. I had no idea that you can file a claim without a DD-214. Yes, you can, because guess what? The VA obviously has a duty to assist. But I didn't know that, but the system knew it. And so, but this Marine came in, he had anxiety symptoms, the service, he's stressed. missing D214. And so the goal was to prepare the case so that the VSO, which was the young lady, could act with confidence and apply it. And so the system just didn't say, yeah, sure, you got a claim. It didn't jump to conclusions. It identified what was known, what was missing. For example, the service dates were missing, duty stations, deployment history, medical diagnosis, prior claims. None of that was available. And so the system went back to create a structured intake to take them through step by step what he needed to do at each phase. And so next, the system examined the evidence. Our system went into a mode where it started to ask guided questions. Okay, where are your service records? Where are your medical evaluations? The goal wasn't to interpret the claim or determine whether or not he had a claim, but to organize the information clearly in an efficient manner. In the past, veteran service officers probably would spend 3 or 4 months trying to help a veteran get their claim organized, and then the veteran gets frustrated and walk away and just like, oh, forget it, it's too hard. Well, in this case, it's going to put the onus of the burden back on the veteran because sometimes they have to go out and get their claims. They have to go out to the archives. They have to go back and get buddy statements and things of that nature. In this particular case, the system organized the data for them, and then the system started to evaluate the risk of what was missing. But one thing is very clear, we are not trying to replace the veteran service officers. We're just augmenting their expertise. And of course, the AI is not going to act in the agent mode and decide the claim. No, you're using AI to help you set up your claim because the VA certainly is using AI to evaluate your claim. Let's explain the case. The system explains structured case. It may generate clear outline, timeline of service. If you know those dates, it's going to generate that. And then it's going to recommend next steps. Finally, the system recommends the next step for the VSO. For example, it's going to tell us, request your D214 through official channels, gather your medical documents, draft a statement in support of claim. And these are the recommendations and not decisions. Okay, next slide then. These are all the steps that I just went through. I just went through the steps 1 and 3 applied. And so this is just a further breakdown. Of course, this will be your workbook. And so this will be helpful to you. Next slide. What I want to talk about this step is critical. AI doesn't decide the claim. Only the VA adjudicator can determine eligibility or disability rating. And how evidence changes probability. It's going to generate a clear outline. It's going to determine things from the timeline that you may have missed and records or where information may exist. The last output really is, next slide, Danny, is a structured output. It's going to create that so the veteran can use it. Next slide. And now let's put this in context. All I'm doing is layer on the secret and context. Next slide, Danny. All this is inside the number secret inside the AIW mission ecosystem context. Next slide, Danny. Okay, this slide here just shows you how all of this comes together in the mission layout. Okay, this is just to show we run this process, applies to every persona. It's a one-to-many model. That is the beauty. It just doesn't apply to veterans, just doesn't apply to ministries, nonprofits. It can apply to any organization you run the prompt up with, you put it into the right context. And that's what I want you to understand. And Danny's going to demonstrate that later. Now, I'm going to, next slide, Danny. Go through this real quick. Now, having said all that, I didn't understand the secret loop myself. I spent days working on the framework. And so my confession is I spent days trying to understand the secret loop until I got this epiphany. I asked the AI to explain the secret loop to me as a third grader. And so that's what we've been talking about. I thought it was complicated. Turns out I just need AI to explain it to me like a third grader. Pro tip, I just gave you a prompt. Difficult context, ask AI to explain to you as a third grader or as a fifth grader and give you use case examples. 45 years in intelligence, and the breakthrough came when I explained the secret loop to me like I was 8. I'll leave it with that. Next slide. Danny's going to go through the difference in how we have it organized. Okay. Next slide, Danny. Now, Danny, you want me to talk about the Askable Jarvis mode, or you want to jump in here?
You can give them a quick refresher on it. Most of the people who were on have seen the detailed view, so you can give them just a summary of it.
Again, this is another layer of the AIW workstation. We've segmented our ask mode. Basically, we've substituted just a regular GPT chat box. We trained the GPT to be governed. When we ask it questions, we just ask it. It's going to give us a response in any format they want. Now, the Jarvis mode, we give it a name. The Jarvis who is from Iron Man. Jarvis was Iron Man's assistant. He could act on Iron Man's behalf. That's the agent aspect. As simple as that. Next slide, Danny. And so now we're going to, Danny, if you want to, we can activate the Jarvis mode. If you want to take that prompt, you can run it. We don't have to do that, but Danny's going to get into the demo. This is a prompt, but this runs in our Jarvis mode, and we go through that in great detail in our core and Cohort.
All right, everyone, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take that prompt. I'm going to have it start running, and I'm going to walk through it as it builds. I'll pause for just a second, just for some housekeeping. We've seen some people jump on, and I will put the updated workbook into the chat for everyone who's come on after we shared it earlier, just so you have it. And again, if you have questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. Our goal this week, we're speaking specifically on a new framework for you. It's called The Seeker, and it's based on Joel's book. And we're teaching how that applies to all of the stuff you learned earlier in the week regarding both the ungoverned and governed prompts. And now we're building that into a final framework, as well as giving you concrete examples. I'm going to run this prompt, and as it's running, I'll also explain it. Now, we're running this prompt for edification in our project that we built, I think it was week 3. And in the project, we taught it a lot about what we call personas. In this case, we're talking about the various 9 personas that we have. And so our project here can be also turned into a chatbot. We have a chatbot that we built, I believe, in week 2 that can take any prompt and apply our knowledge base to that prompt in a way that stays within the framework that it's allowed to stay within. In this case, the prompt is activate AI Workstation transparent reasoning mode and activate Jarvis mode. If you've been following along with us, you know what those two things are. It's just basically, as the AI is working through the prompt, it will give us feedback in detail, the transparent mode. And then the Jarvis mode, we can have it do multiple steps with one prompt. In this case, it's going to scan, evaluate, expand, stay within the governance, execute, and just as important, it's going to record it. We can give it back to the CRM and track of everything. In this case, we're going to do a few different personas. They're going to do the veteran persona. So Joel's kind of give you a little bit of information on this particular issue. One is the claim that he's going to be filing is regarding anxiety. And then also related to that is, this is a document. Joel can give you details on it. Basically, it's you as a human being quantified for the government, DD 214. And if you lose it or you don't have it, how does that affect what you're trying to do? So anyway, it's going to walk through all of that. And then we're the second is ministries, nonprofits, studio, business owner, a safety manager from a factory. We're building a few different things, and then we're going to ask it to do these things. Now it's going to break it down, just following the guidelines built into the system. Again, you can train your AI to be very, very well governed. But anyway, this is the persona 1, the veteran. So it's telling us, hey, I've scanned the evidence. And now, where's the evidence coming from? I get this question sometimes week to week. We have built that into this project, so it understands about our personas. We've given it the documentation built into our AIW Workstation project here. So it understands this. Normally, you would have a knowledge base where you would train it up on each individual persona. And we kind of showed you some of that last week. Here we're going down the list. We're talking about evidence that it needs to be presented. The veteran needs to do this testimony. Evidence that's missing, the DD-212. It knows what the government requires for each case, and it's reviewing it and then saying, okay, here's what I'm missing, what you have not put in here so far. All right. And then things like knowledge sources, it's going to tell us now, hey, within the framework of what you've taught me, here's the things that I'm using. It can go out to the internet, but this is where we control how it is affected. Prior belief, AI is too impersonal for veteran support, evidence, and things like that. And then after we go through the process, governed AI scales preparation without replacing human care. That's the thing that it is illustrating, is that AI can be helpful in this case without going too far outside of the guidelines and being able to actually help a veteran going through this very difficult and complex process. And this, the point we're making here is you can take a complex process, and it doesn't matter which persona, the AI can help you go through those complicated persona processes and produce output for you. So in other words, in this case, it is also going to bring back a document checklist so that the veteran has everything that it needs. It's going to talk about how well prepared is the case that we have right now. And then again, of course, stay within no legal advice, no medical advice, and suggest that a human veteran service officer review it before it's actually submitted. And then here's the execute part of it, where it's actually the agentic part, if you will, where it is actually explaining to the veteran where they are, because your DD12, DD214 is not current. There's the things you need to do. It gives them some guidance, gives them a document checklist. It then within there internally, this is the transparent mode. Normally, the wouldn't even see any of this. So we're just illustrating it. You can see it's doing its due diligence, walking through, says its confidence right now is moderate. As Joel said, you don't have to worry about math. The AI will take care of that internally. And then it creates a record so that whoever is managing this process has detailed documentation of everything. I'm not going to go through each persona one in that level of detail, but I did want to kind of show you what it will do for other persona in case of administrator, scenario, member, has anxiety related to military service. Now we're talking about pastor looking at this, or a reverend, rabbi looking at this process and trying to help the church member. And so again, it lets the pastor know, hey, you're missing a clinical diagnosis, you're missing counseling support. These are the things you may want to suggest to the member, and then he can then make his own decision. But certainly you as the leader is going to kind of guide him to the support that he needs. And then so here's the support pathways. Again, no pushing of, we're not saying this about you, no therapy advice. The AI is not allowed to give any of those things, okay? And then so the pastor can ask questions. So how long have you been experiencing these feelings and things like that? Again, it's supportive in the path and supportive in the process. And then, of course, it gives you other options that are nothing to do specifically with health-related care, but can be very, very supportive to the individual. And so, again, it's going to take a record and so on and so forth. I'm going to give you this thread, by the way, so you guys have this thread as usual as I normally do, okay? Let me turn off my video. Okay. I'm traveling okay, so Joel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, but my image was frozen.
That's correct.
Was the screen frozen as well?
The screen frozen. I hear you much better now. So
Okay, I turned off my video. I am routing. The bandwidth is not my normal 2 gigabit. So I apologize for that. But so what I was trying to say, and I hope, yeah, well, you heard, so I don't have to go back through and explain. The key concepts here is the AI that we have built, the large language model within our project, can take any persona, any complex process, and break it down to a way that the receiver, the user in this case of it, can really, really understand it. And again, it doesn't matter what the complicated process or complicated problem is, AI can definitely be supportive, it can be assistant, but it won't give you any kind of legal, medical, or any other advice that'll take you into the land of hallucinations or trouble, okay? I just wanted to touch on that. Are there any questions? Please go ahead and drop them in the chat. And I will keep rolling here. We just did that one example. Okay, Jarvis mode and foundation. Okay, Joel, I'll turn this right back over to you. As I said, we're rocking and rolling.
Okay, which slide are we on, Danny?
That is a really good question. Give me 1 second here. We are on slide number. So, here we go. Actually, you know what? I can. Well, no, this is yeah. Okay. Sorry, my window here as I travel is very small, so I just have to get it to expand out. There we go. Should be able to see it now. There we go. You're on 18, sir, I believe.
Okay. Okay, so Danny just ran through a prompt. Let's see, Danny.
Actually, 20, sorry. 20.
Okay, great. The foundation of every governed intelligence, and that is what we're talking about right now. And we've created that foundation. And so we're going to provide those prompts to you. And one of the things, what you would notice about that's embedded within our prompt is that everything is that the foundation of every governed intelligence system rests on what we call belief humility. AI holds beliefs as probability estimate, never as certainty. And so that's always calibrated to the available evidence. Again, certainty is calibrated, your confidence level is calibrated to the source of your data, of your information. And so that's why we have built in that evidence first. No conclusion is reached before evidence is gathered and evaluated. It's going to ask you for all that information. It'll even take you out to interview you to see if there's something that you missed. And so we're claiming that, if you do this properly, that you can mitigate your hallucinations and drifts within your system. And so what does that mean? It means is the ethical responsibility. Outputs must not harm, mislead, or bypass professionals' judgment and legal obligations. And there's human oversight at every aspect. Okay, next slide, Dave. And so this prompt right here is called the Universal Seeker Prompt. And this is the prompt that you could try at home, and we'll put it in there, but it really is our secret sauce algorithm. What it does is it helps you understand what everything that we just talked about in terms of government. We built this into this prompt. And so the Universal Seeker Prompt Test, you could take this prompt and apply it to any large language model. And so we wanted to generalize this prompt. And so we wanted to create an algorithm that explained everything we were trying to do, whether it's the seeker concept, and also include the belief humility aspect. And so you can ask AI this. The question we asked the AI was, will artificial intelligence replace most human jobs in the next 20 years? But you just don't ask that question to the AI. You ask that question to the AI in a governed environment. Now you can do it. You can run this prompt governed or ungoverned, but we wanted to run it governed. And so next slide, Danny. And so I'll show you what my results were when I ran this prompt. Next slide. Oh, hold on, where are you? So the belief humility aspect. Essentially, what we came up with is that when it ran that prompt, it gave some very good information that if you can take that prompt and copy it into chat, that'll be great. And the results were that it's a certainty that AI will replace a lot of jobs or automate a lot of jobs within 30 to 40% of the jobs by the year 2030. And that's what it says based on that. But it also said that AI won't replace your job. More likely, it's going to replace someone who knows AI may replace your job. Okay. So next slide, Danny.
Okay.
The measurable difference between governments, and that's the key. The measurable difference is when you use a governed and ungoverned prompt. And we found that it is basically more accurate, and it's going to give you an output based on the evidence. And so, as I said, the point is, what I got when I ran that governed prompt that is that, yes, it will. If the AI says anything, it must go through these steps, situation, evidence, and everything like that. And so that is the key here for running governed and ungoverned prompts. We talked about this in a little example when we showed you the example for the veteran use case. We explained the situation to the veteran. So the veteran service officer knew how to advocate on behalf. And as we also saw that the system got smarter over time, the system goes into the loop, but when new evidence is found, that number goes up. The most important rule is AI never makes the final decision. It helps organize, but the human expert is always in charge. Just to recap, we've shown you all these things. We've shown you what it looks like with and without the seeker framework or model. We've shown you that AI will give you a quick answer, but we've also shown you that the seeker model helps organize the whole preparation process and that it can be applied to any persona and that it's going to prompt you and ask you, is not going to act in your place unless a human is in the loop. AI analyzes, humans decide. That's the bottom line. And even though we've done all this, we've governed it, AI analyzes the information. AI is very good. The large language models has access to all the knowledge in the world that the world has existed. But AI analyzes, humans decide. That is the key here. Okay, next slide.
What we're going to do in this next part of our training is we're going to show you how to create a very systemized approach to AI. And then you're also going to build out some applications and things, show you how we have already built out some applications applied to that. Joe, you want to continue on? I'm right here with you, sir.
Okay, great. From application to AI pipeline. Okay. So before we go any further, let's make something clear. Organizations don't run on single tools. Okay. Organizations run on processes. Organizations don't run on single tools. Organizations run on processes. And processes run on pipelines. Oh, just stick with me. A tool answers a question. A pipeline runs on a mission. Now, the problem most organizations face right now, and most people out there are experimenting with artificial intelligence like this. They open a tool, they ask a question, they copy the result, then they move on to the next task. That's not a system, that's a random tool usage. Now, for individual, that may be okay, but for organizations, they cannot operate that way. Real organizations, such as the organizations that we deal with, nonprofits, ministries, healthcare, education, they need repeatable workflows. They have accountability. They have governance. They have statutes. They have laws, rules, and regulations. They're heavily regulated. In other words, it's a pipeline. And so you got to make sure that if you are doing something that the AI has taking into account all aspects of your operations in terms of who's responsible for XYZ, who's accountable for XYZ, who needs to be concerned for XYZ, who needs to be informed through XYZ. And so that applies to every level of organization. It doesn't matter if you're a board member, it all needs to be taken into account. You need to have your data set, your enterprise, your pipeline, ensuring that all those aspects are covered, from people, your HR, to your processes, to your tech stack. And that is the point. And so that is your pipeline. It's a structured flow of information, just like you normally work. Think how you work. How do I work? I work with this group, this group, this group. Well, each group has a mission. Each other group has an interest. And so that's your pipeline. And so you got to make sure your tool that you're using is aligned with that. And so the information that you're using, the insights that you want, and the actions that you want. In the AI model, the pipeline flows through the stages of research, ideation, the writing, the governance, and distribution. Each stage has a purpose, as you well know. Each stage has controls, as you know. But each stage within the secret loop preserves human authority. Now, why does this matter? Because without a pipeline, AI will produce answers. With a pipeline, AI produces capability. Again, use case, my book, that was a pipeline. From that, I was able to create other products, the secret loop. So that's where you want to be. And throughout that framework, oh, by the way, I created intellectual property. And oh, by the way, I can trace back every step that I made to get to this conclusion. That's the true test. That's the new test of digital production and integrating artificial intelligence tool. It's not about the tool. It's about the process and the pipeline and what you're trying to achieve. Look, I'll put it into simple terms. Let's explain. When I was a kid once, I had a lemonade stand. And so somebody came in and asked me, how much is the lemonade? I answered, just $1. That's like using a tool. A tool helps with one question, one small task. How much is the lemonade? $1. Okay. But running the lemonade stand is different, as I found out. It has many steps. I had to find money to buy the lemons. I had to put in the physical work to squeeze the lemon. I had to go somewhere and buy some sugar, add some water. Then I had to put the lemonade in a cup. And then I had to market it. I had to sell it to customers. And then, of course, I had to find out how much money I made at the end of the day. Those steps happen in order, one after another. Serial processing. That whole chain of steps is your pipeline. It's the steps you take for that particular operation. Each organization has the pipeline. You just got to find out the pipeline. Oh, can you ask AI to help me find my pipeline? You sure can. It will help you do that. And so, for example, again, if I ask AI, write me a social media post. Okay, it'll give you a social media post done. Now, pipeline runs on a mission. If I were to ask it to write me a social media post, then my AI, the secret loop, is going to ask me questions. Okay, who's your audience? Okay, what's your message? Or what type of image you want to portray? What sort of attributes you want to have? When do you want the post to go out? How do you want to track the responses? Do you have a CRM system? How do you want to save the results? Now the AI isn't just answering a question. It's helping you to run the whole job from start to finish. And that's how the AIW situation tech stack is set up to help run from start to finish. Once you create a post and a product, what do you do with it? How do you track it? How do you measure the effectiveness? One simple way to remember, a tool equal one step, like a hammer hitting one nail. The pipeline is the whole project, like building the entire house. Not just the hammer and nail. Now you're building this. We're giving you the blueprints to build the entire governed intelligence enterprise aspect. And so why does this matter to big organizations, big groups, nonprofits, churches, veterans support teams, businesses? They're just not asking one question. They have work that happens every day. So they need pipelines, systems that work over and over. One of the examples I like to use is Chick-fil-A. Okay, Chick-fil-A tastes differently in Maryland. Does it taste differently in Alabama? Do they cook the fries differently? Do they use different order each one? No, it's a franchise approach. It's a system. It's a loop. It gets feedback. So they know when something's working and when it's not. By the way, I guarantee you at the national level, at the enterprise level, they have insight into the data and the analytics and the metrics in terms of, sales, volume, customers, and things of that nature. All of that is part of the enterprise. The beauty is AI does all the heavy lifting to do the analysis once you get it set up. So this next slide, Danny. That's the architecture in the words. And so this next section that we're going to look at right now is we're going to try to run a secret loop live. And next slide. And one of the things I want to talk about, can you go back up to that slide, Danny? Just to mention, I talked to you a little bit about the people, the processes, the tech. This is the AIW technology stack, essentially. This is how we have, be, or do anything we want. You really only need 5 tools to take over the world. And the 5 tools that we have are, we use AI Workstation, we use Zoho as our back-end processing capability that allows us to do the analytics, that allows us to do the social media. We get our emails, our phone lines, systems, calls are tied in. So we know, it creates contacts. If we need to create videos, white papers, any type of digital publications. And oh, by the way, we have a training portal where all the training, the lessons that we have are stored. And so it's an enterprise level knowledge base, just like anything else. But oh, by the way, AI is able to take that in the secret loop, bump, compare, synthesize, analyze all of our curated data sets. Now the AI is only looking at the data sets that you have curated instead of going out and looking at the large volume of other data that may not be relevant. And therefore, that's where you get your hallucinations and your data drifts from.
All right, so we're going to pick the demo up from where we were in hour 1. We introduced the secret loop to you, and we talked about the different stages that are part of that. Now we're going to actually run and give you some examples of it live in action, okay? We have a really good prompt here that, again, working in our tool specifically focuses in on activating our AIW pipeline mode. This is a new mode that we're going to activate. And so you can see right here, this is the old prompt. Let's take a look at the prompt that we're dropping in here. And again, all of these, which I shared just a moment ago, a link to it. I've decided not to share the whole file because it's a very large file. Now you can just go to the link, and then when I update that link, you'll automatically get an updated version. I think that's better. It's been getting bigger and bigger each week because we put a lot of data and prompts in there. Anyway, the AIW, we're activating pipeline modes. Now we're adding one more thing. It already has done the information that we asked it to do regarding we're continuing with the veteran version of this conversation. And now what we're adding to the mix here is the pipeline. It's running the secret pipeline now. Scan, expand, execute, keep governance, distribute, and of course, record. It's doing the things in real time that we were talking about in theory. Veteran advocate, you can see that it did the whole scenario. It coming back, now it's going to say, here's the things I know, and here's the things that are missing. And then so it's bring out specific user. What the other version of what we ran earlier, it's kind of like what we call transparent mode, where it's showing us as the developer's product all the details. It is not something you would normally give to the user. You, as part of this class, is seeing the logic behind the prompts that we're putting in, and you're seeing the logic as it builds it out. Again, it's showing you the evaluation, applying it to the Bayesian reasoning. So you're seeing this detail that wouldn't normally be. And when I go to the AI app we built, you won't see all of this detail. This is just for the class, okay? So the purpose, the actions, and why. So it's giving feedback in the preparation stage. Then it's going through evidence, the whole assembly pathway. It's taking the evidence, putting it all together, laying out its actions that it's doing. Again, this is in Jarvis mode or agentic mode and pipeline mode. It's doing all of this by itself, and then it'll ask for human intervention when it gets to the end of it here. The VSO readiness brief path is creating a document that will explain what needs to be done so we can hand it off to the human VSO, veteran service officer, or to the veteran itself. And so it's going to tell you what it knows, and then now it's going to start to executing. This is what the veteran would get. It wouldn't see all that detail. You may still begin preparing your case, even though you don't have this critical document right now. And then it's going to tell you, start by gathering the basics. Here's what you do. Here's how you take the next step. If you have anxiety symptoms, you may want to do this. And so just like in the pastor example, it's just going to give suggestions and thoughts of how the veteran and the VSO can work together. Here's the VSO briefing. This is something the veteran can take to the VSO to get the last bit of the process handled, the claims process handled. The idea is if I'm feeling anxiety, if I'm feeling all of these negative feelings, you want to have both the AI guiding you towards getting support and then the AI guiding you towards getting a VSO officer properly updated on your case, and then you can kind of go to the next step. The priority queue of what you should be doing. You need to get some verification of your service and obtain your medical history, draft. In other words, it's walking step by step through what you should be doing, but it takes the anxiety out of this particular step in the process, which can be very daunting because it's complicated. And same thing, me internally as an AI, here's things I'm not going to do. And it's kind of laying all that out. And then human authority comes in, is going to talk about workflows and things that it's going to build into its next steps in the process. So you can see it does the VSO intake version, it builds out the recording of everything to, again, documentation. Documentation is very critical in the overall steps. This is everything that is done. It's just going to give us a summary of the secret loop here. And so we're done. And by the way, I have trained this AI large language model on other personas. I could just say, give me the same thing to run, but in a totally different persona. This is a real estate professional, complicated process. Anybody who's bought a house knows you have 40, 50 documents you need to sign. The AI is going to go through what it knows. And again, we fed it some things. So it understands where we are. It's a current transaction stage under contract. The evidence that it has is I've got a purchase agreement. I've got the address, pricing, buyer, and it knows these things. And then it's going to get into documents and it was in the veteran process. Here's the things that we're missing. We don't have the inspection report, titles aren't done, HOA documentation, et cetera, et cetera. It's laying out all things. So transaction readiness, for actually going to the closing table. Here's the assumptions of things that we need: evidence, decreasing probability, confidence level, moderate, major contingencies, still pending. I think the key things here are, again, it's going to tell us all of the things that we need to do. Here's the checklist of all the file compliance we need to have, and then it's going to record where we are. I just wanted to show you that that same prompt can be used for your organization wherever you happen to be in your process. Hopefully that was clear. And you can also break it down into other modes and other prompts, and these are all in your workbook. And so you already have the links to these. I'm not going to do each and every one of these, but I really do like the idea of this prompt because it's going to take it to the next stage. And if you're following again in the list of letters we have, the idea is, in the secret pipeline, we want to go to the expand stage where we're walking through the different items that we need to gather. We want to expand upon what it did in the initial pass and get a little bit more detail, a little bit more as we go along. You see that happening here. And then writing and governance, where we actually execute on these. And so you have all of these. So you want to buy reinforcement prompt would be migration. And what it's going to do is it's going to create, in this case, it's going to actually start writing the guide for the veteran. This is what we mean, and you're going to see this in the final result in the app that we built for one of our customers. And so you'll see how this looks once you're finished. And then, of course, steps 5 and 6 is the record part of the seeker acronym. And so you can see all of these in as you run them. That's going to be your homework, okay? Everybody, that's your homework. All right, Joel, go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
Slide 38. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Danny.
No worries.
As I was saying, Danny just didn't build a chatbot. He built a pipeline. It was a system where the workflows through a series of steps, the same way every time, so the organization can handle real problems consistently. So as Danny showed you and demonstrated, the system, regardless of the persona, is going to research the situation, is going to gather evidence, what it believes is missing. Next, it's going to organize the information into clear documentation. Then it runs a governance review to make sure nothing goes out that could be misleading or overpromise or cause harm. After that, that's the humanizing aspect that we built beneath, the secret loop to do that, so that information can be distributed across multiple channels. As you see, it doesn't matter whatever levels, organizations, office types, people that you need to be informed or responsible for whatever decision or whatever it is you're trying to do. The system will have created specific knowledge for that particular individual based in that persona, whatever level that they are. And so the systems capture that, what's learned throughout the organization, not from individual one, but from individual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how many ever are involved in the process, is going to capture all the work, is going to roll that up. And then it also goes back into the loop. Okay, we have some new information from person number 103. Okay, that's going to update the whole thing. But first, it's going to run the accuracy check. It's going to run the quality check of the source of information that was inputted by person 103 before it presents it to the entire group. That's what a governed AI pipeline looks like and how it should work. And especially when you're talking about bots and agents and organizations. And so you don't want the system to guess for you. You want to train your knowledge base. You want to govern it. You want to have a structured process. And so every stage in this new world order that we're in, all we're saying is it's like the wild, wild west out there for AI. You got hype, you got marketing, you got people that claim to understand no AI, but there's nothing quite like what we've done, where we established authority in the Eternal Secrets book that was published 2 years ago, to now developing the model to show you we've taken it from theory to application. Oh, by the way, we've actually done it. We've created the tech stack to support the secret loop. We created the actual standalone AIW workstation, where what we call sovereign AI. And oh, by the way, we don't use the term artificial intelligence. We use, after you do this, it's authentic intelligence. It's no longer artificial, it's authentic. And so because you have created it from live curated data sets, now you can take that authentic information and what? You can patent it, trademark it, or whatever, based on whatever your product you do. Now, when a system like this exists, something powerful can happen. It becomes a repeatable capability. Now you just franchised yourself. You really are putting your brain into your particular system, but you have it governed just like you are, just like you trained. Now it's responsible, it's delivered. And the military people are very well prepared because they understand systems and repeatable capabilities. We don't want, in a crisis management situation, to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to already have a pre-canned response of how we should respond. And as you see, from that, one document can become multiple items and products. And as you see, one workflow can become an organizational wide system. And the beauty about this, the work can be repeated, it's consistent, it can scale. And so the big insight from this is that from one governed document, the pipeline can produce, as we have shown you, guidance for veterans, briefing materials, advocacy, training materials, whatever they want to build from that, all from the same trusted source. And because the process is governed by the seeker, the results stay accurate, responsible, and audible. And so what I want you to take away today is what you just watched isn't about artificial intelligence replacing people. What you just watched is not about AI replacing people. We're humanizing AI. It's about building systems that help people work faster, clearer, and with better judgment. A chatbot, as you saw, can answer a question, and a pipeline can strengthen in the organization's work processes and workflows. And once that pipeline exists, the organization can run it again and again, delivering the same quality of work every single time. Next slide, Danny.
All right. Thank you, sir. And so I already kind of cheated on this a little bit. I had the AI start working on this prompt already. When we talk about a pipeline, this prompt is in your workbook as usual. And so it's going to run and identify what are the repeatable processes for any organization. And so you can ask it to, hey, take a look, here's the things that I do, and you can answer these questions in a guided manner, and it'll walk through and say, okay, here's the things that you need to give me. Here's the information. Then it's going to start thinking about it and helping you plan where you are going with this whole conversation. I wanted to see, here's that prompt running. You can see step one is identifying the repeatable work. You would answer these questions as part of this exercise, and then it would go through and run through step by step until it is done. And this is where it gets really interesting to me, because now, again, you in agentic mode, once you feed it that information, that's sort of a beginning process, it can take it from there. You get the data. In this case, we're going to not run this particular exercise, but I wanted you to have it so you know that you can do this for yourself as part of our class. All right, so let's talk about ecosystems, Joel. And you should be able to see this on your side. This is slide, whoops, sorry, 41.
Okay. Great. Okay, pipelines eventually become ecosystems, essentially. And that's where we are. And you've seen what happens when a single AI interaction becomes a governing pipeline. In session 3, we'll show you what happens when multiple pipelines begin to connect. And this is important. We're moving from a single AI interaction, and now we're going to show you what happens when multiple pipelines. And what we mean by multiple pipelines, if you think about back to stovepipe organizations where you look at the vertical integration on the org chart, and this person reports to this group, and there's no horizontal connections. Well, that's what we're doing. We're connecting the operations, we're connecting the people, we're connecting the processes, we're connecting technology. And so that's when the AI tool is really powerful, when you can allow it to make those connections across the organization. But again, the steps are, it's like no one wants to see how the sausage is made in the factory. Well, that's what we've done. We've got a sausage factory here, and now the sausage is about to come out on the other end. It's going to be really great. But no one wants to see how it's made. But we're showing you how it's made. And so we're showing you a pipeline, how one thing connects to many things in your organizations. And so that is the beauty. And so today we transform, one of our AI, three, applications into a pipeline. But organizations don't stop there. Pipelines eventually become ecosystems. So, next slide.
start over on that slide. Sorry.
Which one? Okay, the AI reference architecture. What I want you to think carefully is that we are giving you the blueprint here. Think of it as, you want to build a custom home, and you get an architect, you draw you the plans of a custom home, and you place everything, every system has a purpose, the specifications that you want. You give the contractor, some guidance, rules, and regulations. Essentially, that's what you're doing. We have given you the blueprint from week 1 through 5 to build this architecture yourself. And again, I right back to, we've done the heavy lifting, we've done the factory. So we've established a framework. And so you can do this yourself. And so because we've given you the tools, the prompts, the references, the resources, and the workbooks to do all that. It's a major value, thousands of dollars of value within this course. And so what this is a governed intelligence system blueprint. And this is just a reference architecture. As I said, if you don't want, like, for example, let's just say you're building your smart robot. Imagine you're building a robot of your version of you to help you make decisions like Jarvis. Well, you don't want it making wild decisions. You want it to look at the evidence, think carefully, follow rules, and ask a human before doing important things. And so it's almost like training your child in the right way. Each parent has a specific process in terms of how they want to. I'm old school, I'm from Alabama, so I grew up in the 60s. So you imagine we knew what a switch was. That was our governance aspect. So therefore, you want to build in layers. And so each layer has a job, and just like you raising everything else. And so you got to understand at the bottom is the technology that makes it possible. Again, we don't teach really tools. As I said earlier, we have a tech stack. You really don't need every tool that's out there. You can add them, replace them as you go along. But really, you need a good CRM system. You need a good, bookkeeping system. Things like Go High Level, sure. But we use Zoho. They can do all that, but you have to tie it all into your framework. Obviously, that includes data storage, where your information is kept. I mean, we have a knowledge repository. We can keep terabytes of information. We have our own server. We built a powerful computer that has terabytes of information, lots of megabytes of RAM. We can operate off the cloud, or we can do it off the internet. So this process is like electricity for the robots. Without this power, nothing is going to work. And so in the next layer, which is governance, we're moving from the infrastructure to the governance layer. That's where we assign the rule. You got to have rules in the Wild Wild West. Think of the Wild Wild West before the sheriff came to town. Everybody was doing what they wanted to do, shooting up the place, lynching, hanging mobs, whatever they wanted to do, stealing horses. And so the sheriff, the law has to come along and say, things got to change. Okay, we can't operate this way. And so that's what we're trying to do with the Wild Wild West, because it is a Wild West out there with artificial intelligence. And you can't pretend like you know everything. Always check your evidence. Obviously, in the case of the bot that we created for the individual, what we're giving you is for informational purposes only. And we're not claiming that you can make tons of money, because this is not actually who this is for. This is for people who are serious, who work in serious regulated organizations and industries, and who will invest the time to understand the process, or at least the governance process of artificial intelligence. A lot of people are not discussing that right now. You got to have the governance layer in there to set the rules that goes beneath the principles. And then obviously the next layer is the knowledge layer, where the system needs information to work with. Well, is it just any information from any source? No, this is your curated data sets that you already have, your old banking information, all your books information, in the case of Pastor Friedman, his sermons, the stuff that he's already done, knowledge he's already possessed, knowledge that AI did not create. The most beautiful thing you can do is take knowledge that you already have and ask AI to improve it, or come up with some new ideas. And so that's the beauty. That's your intellectual product. That's your intellectual material that you can market, give away, or anything you want. And you can, in my case, I had old materials. I updated them to make them applicable to today's artificial intelligence world. Think of it as your library of information, your own personal Library of Congress. It's all indexed. We didn't really talk about metadata tagging, but that's a big part of this, tagging that knowledge base, going in there just as simply as when you create a Word document, to complete those fields where it says tagging, who's the owner, who's the source. That's a pro tip right there. And that's your metadata tagging. What does that do? Well, the system we work on, they say that search engine optimization is dead. So it's now artificial intelligence engine optimization. And that's what our tool does, because those keywords now, and those taglines that you create, you wonder what they're for. Well, this is what they're for. This is where you embed that information. And Word allows you to do that before you turn it into a PDF. And so the search engines out there now, especially the AEO search engines, are going to find your data and material. That's your knowledge base. You're now treating your knowledge base like an asset. Each piece of knowledge that you create, that's your name, image, or likeness that you have on it, you should tag it. You should go into those settings and change that. Now, the next layer that we want to talk about is the evidence layer, the thinking layer. That's the Bayesian engine. Bayesian, we talked about that. Not a difficult concept. It's Bayesian only is your priors, what you know to be true that occurred in the past. The evidence, the evidentiary. Just think, you guys watch crime shows. Where's the body? Where's the murder weapon? Where's the evidence? And so that's all we're doing here, is saying you got to have the evidence. You got to have the receipts. And you need to think carefully about that. Instead of guessing what the AI does, you start with your idea. You look for your hypothesis or whatever. You look for the evidence, and then you update your confidence level. Now, in layer 5, which is, I think, what we're talking about here today, we're going to go keep beating this like a dead horse, the secret loop. That is the proprietary aspect. That's the secret sauce. That's our core algorithm. And we teach our AI, we've governed it, we've trained it, our knowledge bases to react to the secret loop where it understands the situation. We've tried to show you what a governed prompt with the secret loop chip embedded looks like and what you yield. So it's going to critically think about the problem in the situation. It's going to look for the evidence that supports that. It's going to look for the organization or the references or the sources. We've even gotten it where we can go out attached to other third-party tools via APIs to our tool to pull data down. The VSO Buddy can be connected to the Veterans Administration through an API that allows us to pull records and things of that nature, because it's an open source tool. You have to register yourself to do that and identify yourself, because they want to know who's pulling their data. The next layer is the applications. That's where we actually, now we can take a box load of books, readings, prayers, writings, concerns from Pastor Friedman, and turn it into an application. But we can create just basically an app to help veterans prepare claim benefits. We've done it. It's called the VSO Buddy. We could take an app to create customized app for ministry for Pastor Friedman to help pastors support his church members. We can take an app, and if somebody wants to, there's another app to help you find grants, sure, you can do that. You can have, be, or do whatever you want in terms of an application. In the next layer, we want to talk about is the personas, the people. Again, the secret loop is an enterprise level prompt or process where it can apply to every persona, every organization, not limited to just the ones we work with. It can be applied to any situation, whether it's a healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's banking, it doesn't matter. Nonprofit, it doesn't matter. It can be overlaid on top of that. That's the last layer. The big idea is most tools today just spit out answers, as I said, that is going to try to please you. Our tools, the AIW stands for something different. It's going to always look at the evidence because it's built in. And because, again, I bring my passion as an investigator, as an intelligence analyst, as an information operational trained specialist, as understanding of digital productions, the quality of a digital production, the quality of sources. All those things are built in to the secret loop. And that's why it's called a governed intelligence operating system. Okay, next slide, Dan. You built the pipeline and the system, and that's where we are. You built the pipeline from, as you saw, from a veteran's claim to a governed repeatable process. You built the multi-channel AI system. You built all those things in this process that we just saw. Next slide, Danny. What's next? What's coming up next in session 3? Looking ahead, you've seen what happens when the single AI interaction becomes a governed pipeline. And so we've shown you all that. And we've shown you the multi-channel aspect of it. We've shown you the architecture. And so now we're ready to go to connect your pipeline to something larger. And so what's coming from pipeline to mission ecosystem? This is where we talk about the AI agents, the knowledge bases, the CRM intelligence layer, and the whole entire mission. We're taking you from the 10,000 level view. Now we're going to take you down to several thousand feet and then take it down a little bit more to show you how this all come together. Next slide. The evolution of this is the learning arc. Most organizations are still experimenting with individual AI tools. The organizations that will, we believe, lead the next decade are going to be those organizations that understands this process. Let me just give you what I call the evolution of AI systems, where it's like, how do they come about? Where did we get these, the thought processes from? And so AI is not new. AI has been around since the beginning of time. Just like any other technology out there, only it's revealed at the time it's appointed to be revealed. And so AI just didn't appear, in 1956 with Alan Turing and, those individuals. They just gave it a name. But what we're trying to show you now is, because as we know, the information is abundant. It's all out there. And the problem is, let me just see if I can say that the evolution of AI systems, I want to use a simple use case. And so imagine the Veteran Service Organization help the veteran file disability claim. So at first, they start using AI in a very basic way. And that's how most people use it. In stage one, a single tool. A staff member uses AI to write an email to a veteran explaining how to prepare a document. The AI can help you write faster, but every time someone needs help, the staff member has to start over. I'm just saying, this is the normal process. So this is how we are taking it down right now to actual application from theory. So we want you to use AI as a helper tool, and it can help you save time to respond to an email from the VA. Now, the organization, if you think of your organization or individually, if you want to build a small AI system to help, in the case of this individual working there, a tool to help veterans, assist them prepare their claims, we can do that. The system can explain the process, as we showed you. It can document the needs, as we've shown you. And so now the veteran can come to a meeting prepared. Now, let's just say you use this before you even see your veteran service officer. You're going to be well prepared. And so now the veteran, the organization, users who can connect all these tools together. Let's just say that the way we have designed our system, it now knows a little bit more because we've already connected it to the third-party application. We've already connected to the different statutes that govern, I believe Statute 38 that governs disability and claim requirement. We already have access to that data. AI has already analyzed that data. And so it's going to bump up against the veterans that's claiming anxiety use case based on all the IDQs, all the other things that they need to know how you get rated for anxiety. And it's going to create the nexus or show you the nexus of how you got there, and if, what type of impairments that you have. And so that's all part of the process, instead of just starting from scratch, trying to figure this out. Using our tool, what the organization can do, everything comes together. The system now helps with the claim preparation and everything else. It's a repeatable process. And so not only can the system improve over its entire lifetime, because now it can also look at whether or not the response that you gave, and then you put your package in, and then your package was denied or awarded. Well, that's more information for the system. Now the veteran brings that data back. I was denied my claim. AI helped me. Well, let's figure out why. It can help us. And so basically you would take that denial letter, upload it, and run it against your system, your prior knowledge. It's like, okay, now we thought X, now Z happened. The system could help you do that. Instead of just taking that letter and like, oh, well, I guess that's it. No, you can run it one more time. And now the system has all the information that it needs. The big idea here is the tool helps a person. A system helps a team learn, be more productive, because it has all those things connected together not just as a single choke point, or it's not going to be a single point of failure. That's the shift we are showing you today. And next slide. And we're going to talk about what's a mission ecosystem. Think of AI as a mission ecosystem, like the brain and memory of your organization. Now that we've done all that, now you've created your brain, as I said. Instead of different tools working separately, everything works together as one system. That's the beauty of AI. You are connecting your own system. You are creating your own matrix, essentially, if you want to look at it in those terms. And so now it can help your organization. But, oh, by the way, it's controlled and governed, and you own that data, and it's not being used to train other systems. That's the beauty, number one. I want you to remember that. And we talked about that data ownership, data sharecropping, who owns your data. But in our world, it helps your organization remember, it knows, it organizes your information, it helps people do their jobs better. Again, humanizing them all the time. And so you can think of it like this: people, technology, knowledge, working together as one intelligent system. People, technology, knowledge, working together as one intelligent system. In this world, and as you say, AI never sleeps. Well, yours won't sleep either, because it's going to be always on. It'll help you stay organized, make better decisions. And so, again, we talk a little about your knowledge-based management. A knowledge base is like a library of everything your organization knows. Just remember SharePoint. That's all it is. SharePoint, Dropbox, doesn't matter. It contains all your things like your training materials, your policies, your research, your guides, past case files, best practice. Essentially, it's about what we use a term in intelligence called marshaling your evidence or marshaling information. That means bringing it all together into one place, putting it on a whiteboard. That's essentially what we're doing. We're whiteboarding all this stuff. We're pasting it up there. We're creating a case for each issue, problem, or situation that you're in. But instead of, back in the old days, I had file folders. We had safes. We kept stuff in. You had to lock it up at the end of the day. Instead of searching through those folders or emails, the AI can quickly find the right information at the right time. It can do it a lot faster than you can at any time. The simple idea that your knowledge base is your organization's brain's library. You need to start marshaling your data, your organization's data, your organization's SOPs, your organization's restrictions, your organization requirements, whether it's a regulated industry, HR practices, all those things are part of your knowledge base. And so when you go on to get into the upper level aspects of developing agents and bots, you don't get hallucinations and drifts and things of that nature, because the AI is governed. It's going to respond to what you have in there in your knowledge base. And therefore, it's going to reduce that. If you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Same principle applies here. And so, but from there, now let's assume that you have accurate sources. A good example is the banking industry. The banking industry has adopted AI quicker than anyone else. You know why? Because they have good data sets. They have information, they have banking data from years of your banking data, how you, banked, how you, whether or not you've overdrawn. They have your own banking history. And so now they can take not just yours, but they can roll that up into thousands of other use cases now to come up with a report to say, okay, who's a good security risk? Will AI start automating credit scores? It already has. It already is. And so, but it's going to be based on the record. Now, I'm not saying that the record can't be wrong. And we've always experienced the fact that you call somewhere and the system was wrong, and the individual at the end of the line, because it was in the system must be correct. But no one ever thought, well, that's a wrong record, or that's not me. And how do you correct that? Well, in our system, we can always go back and extract that wrong data. Whereas a big corporate enterprise, like American Express, if they have a wrong record about me, it'll take years to try to figure out where that information came from. How does this apply? Well, again, different agents can help you with writing, help you analyze the data, and help you prepare reports. But each focus on a different task, different agent, different skill, all working together. Now, as far as the CRM, that's the organization's memory. And as I said, we use Zoho. Once you do this, once you create your digital products, where is it stored? Who created it? Who has access to it? Okay. You want to be able to roll it up into a CRM, client relationship management, but really it's a knowledge-based management. Also, you design the fields. For example, you want to know who contacted you about the information you're trying to develop, what help they needed, what actions did they take. All those things can be recorded into your CRM. It is part of the data record, the data sets. And so again, it's about responsibility. Once you set this up, you don't have to worry about it. The system will do it. But what it does is create a record of an organizational experience. This is the same thing that Salesforce does, because essentially that's what we're doing here, but we're using Zoho to do it. The next time someone comes back that says that the system already knows the history, well, then we have now an analytical feedback loop where we can go back and trace back to find out why the system gave the answer or output that it gave. And so if a process works well, the system is going to remember that. If something causes a problem, the system can help you improve. Again, a problem. I got denied. Well, let's load that denial level up. Okay, so now the system knows, well, we produced this, we thought it was good, but a human decided no. Well, it's going to tell you. Now, that human who decided no, that's a whole nother situation, because you don't know how that person got their answer. You don't know the situation or circumstances behind that person making that decision. I hope that the government is not using agents to make automated decisions. I hope that there is a person who is signing the denial letter. And then that person, you have to think about it, is a person. That's a human being. What's going on with them that day? Are they having a bad day? I don't know. I'm just saying, you got to understand there's someone behind the drone missiles when they hit a boat in the water. Someone pressed the button. That's a person. And I hope the government doesn't use autonomous weapons, because, again, human in the loop. You got to make sure that that is the right target. The big idea here is most organizations use separate tools. But for an AI mission environment, it should connect everything: knowledge, assistance, CRM memory, the learning feedback. And so when everything works together, the organization gains something powerful. It kind of reminds me, when everything works for the good. This is what we're trying to do: make everything work for the good, to create your institutional memory. That means that the organization remembers what it learned to become smarter every day. Just think of a nonprofit. You have the system set up and you want to tell your story to the world. Well, the AI can produce a video, a script. It can produce a customized song for that. It can help identify people who resonate with the nonprofit's mission. It can analyze the donors, when they gave, when they stopped giving. And so a system, if you had the system, it can do all that at the punch of a button. A simple way to remember: a tool helps one person, a system helps a team, an AI mission ecosystem helps the entire organization think and learn together. Next slide, Danny. And so we won't talk about this much, but these are just all the layers working together. Just think about it, building a sandwich. You know, sandwich got many layers. Each adds something important. If you take away something from the sandwich, it's not as good. And so the AI mission ecosystem works the same way. We built this as a hero sandwich. And our sandwich has 7 layers that work together. You can't take one layer away. So again, layer 1 is about leadership. Leadership has to set the tone, the direction, the board of directors. Okay? Your core team, your managers, your supervisor, the directory. They all have to understand, they decide what the mission is, who they help, what the goal is. For the captains, they have to be part of this process. It's not one person in the organization, it's all of them. Okay, and then layer 2. Now the captains have helpers, you know, who's on my operations team, who's on my HR team. These are the people who do the work every day. These are the people who are onboarding. These are people who are hiring candidates for you. These are the people who are assisting with veteran service claims. Okay, they're doing the work. They bring the mission to life. Layer 3, knowledge layer. This is everything that organization knows. Again, knowledge management. Think of it like the team's big notebook, their brain, their notebook, all your policies, SOPs. And layer 4, the AI helpers, they're tools like smart helpers. They help the team organize information, write documents, find answers. They don't make decisions. Those are your bots. Those are your agents. That's the ask mode. That's the Jarvis mode. And then, of course, the memory. You got to have sufficient memory, whether it's cloud-based or standalone. Okay, you got to have the bandwidth to keep track of who asked for help, what they needed. That's your CRM system. You got to have a CRM. That's why we use Zoho. You have terabytes of information in there. If you need more storage, you can buy more, just like Google Drive. Same concept. They're always seeking to upgrade your storage. Well, that's all it is. You got to store this stuff anywhere, but this is you don't want to store junk. You want to store your curated knowledge set, okay? And so built in the system, what you don't see every time, the system helps someone, they learn something. The system remembers what it worked on before. When someone walks out the door of your organization, how many times have I seen or have hated people who were going to leave an organization because they were taking all the knowledge with them? They were the brain of the organization. I'm like, oh my God, I wish we could capture that knowledge. Well, now you have. You've captured essentially what they were working on, what their knowledge is. And so when they, when someone walks out the door with all the knowledge, they just don't leave with the intellectual property of the organization. But if you do that, when you start creating your digital products, which is in layer 7, something powerful happens. The knowledge that's been built, like guides, training programs, these are all helpful resources. These products can help many people at the same time. You create workbooks, things to help other people from your created data, and you can market it, sell it, or give it away. But all these layers work together. This is the blueprint every person in the cohort is learning to build. And we teach you that in the Genesis cohort, a system to help people today, tomorrow, and for many years. Next slide, Danny. Next slide.
All
Okay.
right. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm on you set the kind of framework of everything that we built. And so I'm going to quickly give you the unveiling of actually I'll give you two of one of our tools. And so we're calling this VSO Buddy. You've seen throughout the previous part of this lesson as we built the logic. So now we're going to show you what an application that actually uses the secret loop, uses Bayesian modeling and everything else to assist, in this case, the veteran as they go through the process. And we're calling it VSO Buddy. We actually built this for a customer. It's an example of all of that technology coming together into a single tool. And in this case, the veteran can land here. They can actually get comprehensive support. There's multiple modules that we're building out. They can come in, they can do their registration for their claims and their cases. It has claims tracking. It gives them back feedback on eligibility. The VSO is also part of this team utilizing this application. They're the ones that are going to be the human in the loop, guiding the veteran through the processes. But we're building in all of the different tools. The idea is you take those theories, those concepts, and then you start creating actual tools, systems, pipelines, frameworks that end up in this. The veteran can come in and start a claim. I'm going to fill this out in super high speed time here, just using my AI. And so they can come in, they can put in their information, they can put in what branch that they participated in, they can put in, when they left the service. And so they can go back as far as they need to go back in the time. And so once they put that in, of course, the system starts using that as part of the data that it's collecting. They can come in and say what type of claim that they're looking to file. They can add information and then, specifically what's the primary issue. They can also click on common other issues and they can give a scope of details. I have lost or I do not have. That type of thing. And of course, the certification that they believe is connected to the military service. And from here, then they can start uploading all of the information that they need to provide, including the medical records, any treatment records that they've already done, and all of these things. What's going to happen, and I'm not going to show that today because we've already kind of shown you what this looks like. And so they can then submit the claim. This is an example of building an app, what it's going to do. And so it's gathering that information and it's going to pass it along to the VSO who's attached to this. In the meantime, it's gathered, hey, okay, this is where this person lived based on their address. Here's the nearest post. It's telling you they can go there for benefit counseling, disability claim assistance. And so it's going to build that in immediately into the conversation, even before they've even logged in. And we're going to pull information using AI, of course, to pull in details about that location. And you can even click the button to talk to a service officer. They can send emails, things like that. This is the idea of an app created from all of the concepts you saw us do earlier. Same thing here. I have a Pastor's app. Again, this is, we take our frameworks, we built a knowledge base for Pastor Freeman. We collected all of the works that he's already done. He's written many books. And so we built all of that into this application. Of course, we ingested the Bible into it so that all of the ministries and teachings that the AI is going to be responding to is based on his vision, his mission. It's all in here. That's what we meant by that knowledge base. And then they can come in and run individual apps, get daily devotions. They can, ask the Q&A, Bible Q&A bot questions. They can go in and have a lesson. There's curated teachings and lessons in here and so on. They can go in and buy the books that the pastor has written. Again, taking all of that and making it into a practical, real, education type of thing. And so you can immediately go in and ask the AI based on your information questions. And so you can say something like, I am struggling through And now, what's good about building a system like this is that the AI can answer the initial question, but then, of course, the visitor to the website could actually ask to speak to a human being. So it allows you to automatically upgrade the experience, if you will. It's going to give us specific scriptures that we can go read and get some comfort from. And again, it's going to be based on the word, and it's going to be all curated by all of the work that we did ahead of time, creating a truly governed AI experience. It's not going to go out to the internet and pull information. It's only going to pull it from the data sources that the pastor has provided and approved. That's an example, again, when you're dealing with important, and as Joel says, critical missions, you want to have the data be restricted, and then, of course, the responses be governed. Hopefully that all made sense. The other thing that I did here, and again, just continuing on quickly here through the demo, I jumped ahead a little bit, but I think when you look at the VSO Buddy and the pastor's apps, it is all based on the seeker loop. It runs through the environment. It looks at the situation of what is being asked. It looks at the evidence that's been provided. It uses the knowledge sources that we have built into it. And then from there, it follows the rules. And so this is the prompt, for example, here, that if we ran this in the AIW project and or in the AIW workstation itself, it's now going to go a step further, and it's going to work on not just the initial, hey, I have anxiety issue. Now it's going to expand upon and build out on all the things that we talked about, the layered pipeline, creating that layered approach to it. Now it's going to take the VSO Buddy example with the veteran and it's going to expand it to talk about other benefits, education, housing, things that, you see veterans on the street because they're unhoused or homeless because they're suffering from PTSD and things like that. They need additional assistance. You can ask that prompt into the AI, and then it's going to give you back more detailed and layered responses. This is where it kind of does. I'm going to give you this thread as again, so don't worry about going through it step by step right now. We're going to just let you know that we're going to do that whole extraction method. I'm going to give it to you. Okay. All right. Those are the examples I wanted to show. And the idea is you can take that same prompt that we just ran and we can run it for any persona. This is really important. Just like we did earlier in the lessoning, you could see that we can run this same persona, ask about, creating multiple steps where it's going to create the listing descriptions, the social media calendars. So it can do all of that. And this is where AI is amazing because it's not just for one particular persona. We can take it and have it just go all out and create things. In this case, we've got a 3-bedroom home targeting a first-time buyer in a market. What's the pipeline? It's going to research, intake, planning, execution, and of course, governance, and then knowledge capture. First thing we're going to do is, before the marketing even begins, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? It's going to gather that data. What's the context? What's the marketing context? It's going to do things like comps and so on. First-time home buyer is the persona that the realtor are going after, and there's a whole story behind the difference of the terms. And if you ever want to know, just ask me. I'll happy to help. To be chair of the tech here in Georgia. Affordability, listing marketing brief is walking through ideation to planning. It's going to do the execution. First thing it's going to do, of course, is going to plan out who we're targeting, how we're going to get their attention, affordability options, all these things, move-in ready lifestyle. What are they interested in? What channels are we going to be looking at? And then the actual execution, a 3-bedroom house. And this is the listing description that's going to grab their attention. It's going to build out a social media calendar for the next 30 days, including where we're going to post these things. We're going to do different kinds of posts. The first post is new listing announcement, just factual. Then we're going to do some lifestyle things. Imagine your first home. Different styles of marketing, all being generated by this same tool, but in a different persona. The idea is AI is extremely flexible, powerful, and if you build it with a really strong framework that we're talking about here, you can do some amazing things. Now it's going to actually start building prompts for you. And this, I want you to kind of think of as a teaser to week 6. Let's go ahead and let me go to the next slide. Joel, you should be coming back in. All right, sir, go right ahead.
Okay, now, based on all that, what Danny just went through was going from theory to actual application to actual deployment. And so we've shown you that the secret loop model based on different personas and the things you can get out of, and how you have now, based on the framework that we've given you, you have ownership of that data now. And so this can work both personally as well as professionally. So now this brings us to the new topic. We call it what we call data ownership. Is the new competitive moat. And that's what we're trying to get you to, is to own your own data. Let me ask you a simple question. How many of you own your personal domain name? That means your .com. Like, I started buying my kids' domain names during the pandemic 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now. And again, when we talk about domains, digital domains, you have a digital ID. Who should better own your name than you? And so it's the same way with your products. Now, here's the second question. How many of you have secured your children's domain names? How many have you secured your domain names? I mean, you have your website, but in terms of the products that you serve, absolutely. You need to own a domain for that, and we're going to show you that, because whether you like it or not, identity in the digital age economy begins with domains and data. Two things, domains and data. The domain name, it looks simple, but a domain represents three things. It represents your identity, authority, and ownership. Identity, authority, and ownership. If someone else owns the domain, they control what appears there. The same thing is not happening with data. And so in the AI economy, whoever owns the data governs the intelligence that flows from it. That is the way it is. That is the game. We're trying to help you with a game plan in the AI environment, especially where life and trust matter. Whoever owns the data governs the intelligence that flows from it. The strategic doctrine, the most valuable asset is not the model that we just created. The most valuable asset is the data you own and curate. Any organization can access GPT. Any organization can access Claude, Perplexity, or anything else. The model is not your advantage. Each model has different purposes. We use them all, of course, but it's not the model. It's your domain knowledge. It's your case files, your research, your experience, your voice. That's what makes AI powerful for your mission. And we've showed you examples with the veteran service officers using AI. You know, you can use AI GPT generically to search a prompt. It's a generic use of the internet knowledge. The second has knowledge base built from years of, and so, but ours has, we're adding to that knowledge base because we're going to add to increase our ability to get a successful claim, to create our documentation. And so which one has the most advantage? The one who owns the case intelligence, and the one who owns the background information, and that's yours. That's your stuff. I'll give you an example in Pastor Friedman's case, ministry leadership. Think about a church. Again, we use Pastor Friedman. He has notes, sermons, archives, counseling themes, and then he showed you the demo of what we did for that tool. That application now represents decades of wisdom. It's his digital legacy. When organized correctly, that knowledge can power any AI system that supports the ministry without replacing the pastor. It doesn't matter what tool you use once you have the data. So did we replace the pastor? No, we didn't. We enabled the pastor to share his ministry to not one, but millions. And he owns that data. Danny showed you another example of the real estate example. Over the years, they accumulated a lot of buyer questions, listing, performance data, you know, what sells, what's hot, activity of the neighborhood. That data set becomes incredibly powerful now. And then for that realtor's AI system, if it's trained the way we ask you to train it, that is basically that agent's real world transactions. It becomes far more valuable than just a generic tool because now you have that local knowledge data set, okay, of the types of transactions that you've had in the past, that you have an idea now. If you're a single realtor or a multi-agency realtor or whatever, you now have access to powerful tools. Let's talk about nonprofits. Nonprofits, they sit on the most valuable data sets in the world. Donor engagement patterns, grant success histories, program impact data, all those things, community needs. But most nonprofits store this knowledge scattered across spreadsheets and documents on somebody's desk. And especially it depends on the environment, the organization itself in terms of personalities, of course. We all know how that works. You know, you have different personalities in different organizations. When that data becomes organized, it becomes mission intelligence. And so that is the competitive moat. Think about companies like Amazon. Their advantage is not the website. Their advantage is the data about purchasing behavior. That's what they're selling. Data about purchasing behavior. Google's advantage is not their search bar. It's that they're smart enough to have indexed the internet. And that's all we're teaching you right now, is to become your own Google. That data creates the moats competitors cannot easily cross. And so once you do that, a Fortune 500, $1 billion company could not do what you do because you've already trained the data set. And so now the AI knows how it can transform that data into anything you want. You can ask AI, okay, help me scale to $1 billion company in 10 years. It's going to give you an answer. The thing about it is, when you just use regular tools, when you just use a regular generic GPT prompt, you don't own that intelligence behind that. In this world, when you feed it into someone else's platform, a third party, Google, whatever, LinkedIn, Facebook, you're feeding someone else's algorithm. You're feeding someone else's platform only for them to turn it around and market it against you, and you are not compensated for your knowledge set. Your knowledge base is training someone else's model. In fact, you've already trained the model. So every picture you've taken up, every location, every review you've made, anything in Google, it's all been rolled up. And they're using it. And especially, that's why they love to give you a free email, because if it's free, you are the product. Having said all that, this is why we've created the cohort, and this is the bridge, the core cohort. This is why the cohort exists, because it focuses on building your own domain, not just learning an AI tool, but creating knowledge ecosystems that belong to you, your mission, and your intelligence. Next slide, Danny. Once you do all that, now you move from curated intelligence to digital legacy. So let me just ask this. Most people think AI produces content, but the real value is not the content. The real value is the curated intelligence behind it. With the VS Buddy, that's curated information. Think about the knowledge you already carry, years of experience, casework, sermons, training material, research, conversations you've had with people. As I said earlier, that is authentic intelligence. It came from your life and your work. The shift is, in the past, intelligence stayed locked in your notebooks, filing cabinets, for me, scribbled on a piece of paper or a napkin. Now that information becomes knowledge, something different. And so now you're able to structure that intelligence to your own domain. And once that exists, you have three options. You can keep it private, use it internally to increase your organization capacity, or you can share it freely, give it away as public, or you can monetize it responsibly, turn it into a digital product like we've done here. We build it. It's up to you to determine what you want to use it. Creating your digital legacy, this is where something powerful happens. When your knowledge becomes structured intelligence, it becomes part of your digital legacy. Long after you retire, long after the leadership changes in the organization, the knowledge still serves people. And we use Pastor Friedman every time, because, that is a good use case. His developed wisdom over the years. That knowledge stays inside his domain, his environment. And you can create your own revenue models or anything like that. You can be or do whatever you want with your information. I added one last thing in here. We're working with an individual. We're developing, someone came to us, organization wanted to develop a broadcast studio to add on to their existing capabilities. And so we're working with a Next-Up Studio engine, a creative platform for agencies and creators. And so all of that is going to be run through this process. The point of these applications is not technology, it's capturing expertise, turning experience into structured intelligence. We're teaching you how to help AI use it for good. The real question becomes, what intelligence exists inside your mission right now that could become a digital asset? What information do you own that you can market, monetize, or give away? You have a lot. Your knowledge, your experience, your work patterns, your legacy. Because in the AI economy, the leaders who win would not be the ones who simply use artificial intelligence tools. They will be the ones who own the intelligence tools run on. Okay, next slide, Danny. This is just an example of all the domains and IP, just a street overview of what it will actually look like. All of these are mine. All of these are owned. All of these are covered under the Kimmett Group trademark process, including my name. Next slide. Your challenge is turn your idea into a real plan. Up to this point, we talked about how governed AI systems think. You saw the secret framework. You saw how evidence changes probability. You saw how AI pipelines can think into action. But the important part is this. Artificial intelligence becomes powerful only when it solves a real problem inside a real workflow. Again, organizations don't run on interesting ideas. They run on repeatable processes, and those processes become AI pipelines. And that's where we're going to practice right now. Instead of just talking about AI, you're going to design one simple application that can actually help someone to do their job better, okay? Something that helps people do something faster, with fewer mistakes, with more information. That's why we're giving you this framework. We just to learn how to develop repeatable processes. Okay, next slide, Danny. There you go. Okay, Danny, you want to take this prompt?
All right, so I'm having a lot of fun today on this travel exercise. But as you can see, what we wanted to do is take a example, again, the VSO Buddy, and show you how you can have AI act as your enterprise marketing strategist and product launch advisor. And there's another good job for someone looking for a job. And you can have it actually walk through, you give it the target audience. You've seen us do this in, I think, week 2 or 3, where we explained about personas, how to reach out to them. And then we're asking it to start generating tech for us, specifically a social media campaign, LinkedIn, email, create some landing page copy for me, and build out a whole strategy for us to get this out there. I've already run this prompt. Think of it as a cooking show in some ways. I just wanted to run that same prompt. And so let's see what we've got here. Oh, okay, let's go a little further down here. Prompt table, let's refresh. All right, let me bring up my other instance of ChatGPT. It should already have this prompt run. There we go. All right, cool. Go to market asset package. We've been asking it to help us do this. So we're going to talk about the things that we've taught it, mission-driven technology. These are all the principles for the marketing. Again, in the marketing, no legal or medical determinations, nothing that would affect the veteran in a negative way unless humans are involved. Headline, this is for LinkedIn, why many veterans struggle to navigate the VA claims process and how better preparation can help. That's kind of like a pretty good headline. It's not provocative. It's just sort of factual. It's more of an educational marketing approach. And then here's the actual post that it built. And so again, I'm going to share all of this with you, so I'm not going to read it. And then the call to action in marketing is when you ask people to do something against your offer. Learn more about VSO Buddy pilot program or request information. It's a very simple one. And then it built out an email campaign for us, why many VA claims stall before they even begin. If you're a veteran working through this process, you get this email. You're like, oh, interesting. And then it goes into laying out the problem, the key insights, and then the call to action. It's inviting them to participate. And then email number 2, introducing, where you actually launch it. First, you prepped them, and now you're actually launching it and giving them information about what the product does. It helps you organize your claims, identify missing evidence, it generates checklists. And so it's walking through what's the value. People do not participate in things unless there's a benefit to them directly. And then the third email in the sequence is the benefit one, okay? So that's why people participate in different things, is that what's in it for them. That's what your email threads should all be focused on as you walk them through and educate them. Landing page is building out solutions to the problem that it's stated. And again, it was going back to our seeker model, evidence for the organization, documentation, preparation, and then structured case summaries. Trust and governance. The AI is not running rogue. It's following predetermined governance as it tries to help, in this case, veterans. It can be helping anybody. And the AI is building out a video script. So you can see I can build a video, and I've shown you in previous weeks in the AIW Workstation platform using tools like the Create AI Video tool. You can have the AI read the script and produce a video that you can put on your website, drop into social media. It can give you suggestions if you are going to charge for your services. It can give you some suggested pricing. There's also some prompts that we teach you on having it do a deep dive into your industry or business so that it can come back with local area competition, things like that. We did that live last Thursday where we were working on that studio. We helped them kind of look at what's the price points that they should be advertising or not advertising. Just maybe it's something they have internally so they can use it for proposals and things like that. You can see how that thread kind of worked. And again, next week's 6, we're going to spend a lot more time in the digital product space, including marketing and things like that. I'll turn it back over to Joel.
Okay. All right, thanks. All right. So the question is, Danny has just run you through an example of how you would take a finished product to build it. The question is, what's your implementation path? And so based on that, how do you want to build? You can do it yourself. You can build it independently using the AI Workstation, secret framework. We can do it with you, or we build alongside you. We have instructors. Again, we meet twice a week, or we can done for you. That's the full gamut. That's the whole thing in terms of working alongside with you. We are what we call a managed service provider. Okay, how do you want to build? Next slide, Dave. It should be ecosystems.
Okay. All right, hold on just a second, sir.
Next slide.
Oh, sorry. I see what happened. Yeah, it didn't jump. It didn't do the next slide automatically. Sorry about that. Let's go on. Yeah, I'm going.
All right.
There you go.
Here is just a week 6 preview where we talk about ecosystems, building a business. This week you learned how to build a governed AI pipeline. You saw how the framework worked. You saw the evidence. So you've already built the engine, and now we're going to build the enterprise around it. We're going to help you understand digital product marketing. There are costs associated with creating an enterprise, obviously subscription costs and different packages and things of that nature. You have to determine what's best for you. But one of the things I can say about Zoho is that it's an all-in-one, has different applications for the entire enterprise. It doesn't matter what persona you are, it applies to everything. Just like, the secret loop applies to every persona. Well, we built it around that aspect. And so in the end, though, what you will have complete digital production agency, factory, curated with your knowledge and your information. And so anything you produce, you can ask the AI to produce market-ready products. And so that's essentially where we're moving, where we're going, and then you, as salespeople, if you're interested in selling, you got to price your digital product. I don't know what time it took. I don't know what expertise you have, but all these things are part of your pricing strategy. We taught you to understand your domain, how valuable that is, the trademark and IP to protect the data that you build. And of course, you need to be able to track your sales, your contacts. That's just your CRM system. What we tried to show you is how to build the AI application. And then what we're showing you now this week is how to build the enterprise. And so next week is where the transformation happens. You stop experimenting with the AI and you stop owning an AI ecosystem that can serve people, create value, and scale your mission. We hope you join us. And that's all I have. I'll turn it back over to Danny.
All right, everyone. Hopefully we answered all of your questions. Where do we get information on the packages, build website? Help is one of the questions in the chat. Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Yep. I'll share. So Joel, please share also your contact information. But in the workbook, at the end, the last page is all of our contact information. So you can easily reach out to us and we can give you specifics. We just need to have a quick conversation with you, kind of understand better what it is that you need, and we'll make sure that we answer all of those things as well. I will put in not only my contact information, digitalexpress.ai, that's mine. I'll include as well my calendar link. And I appreciate the question, Vanessa. Nice to see you again. It's funny, we've been doing this now for quite a few weeks, and we have some people that have been following us as we go along. We really appreciate everyone jumping on these calls on a weekly basis. It is a lot of fun to do these things. And Joel and I, we try to help everyone as best as possible. Here's my calendar link. All right, perfect. Joel, I really enjoyed the framework and what you taught here. I think it's all coming together nicely. And so we've covered all the way through creating your pipeline, your ecosystem. And now we're going to take all of that and turn it into a business. If you have an organization, a ministry, even though those missions are nonprofit or something like that, you still have to grow your following. You still have to grow your flock. You still have to grow your members. You still have to grow your business or your organization using AI. can be very, very powerful to help you fulfill your mission. That's where we're going to go next week. So this has been a great journey. All right, everyone. Let me get my camera working now that I don't have to share screens as well. I just want to say thank you for all your patience during the technical issues. I think my system started Zoom like 3 times, but everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week, Saturday. Tuesday at noon, we do the regular AI training. All the links are in the chat. And then we have Thursday, we continue our specialized training. And then, of course, we'll be here Saturday for week 6. All right, everyone. Anything else, Joe? Are we done?
No, Danny, thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your demo in this capability. I'm non-technical, so.
Thanks. You're welcome, Vanessa. Everybody have a great rest of the weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.